Well, the other problem that you got right now, and I'm saying this, you're not saying this, I'm saying this. There's a difference between ESPN.com and ESPN TV, right? ESPN.com has the great Don Van Natta and his story that works off of my old co-host Pablo Torres' reporting of a 61-page confidential decision. That confidential word, we're going to get to that. But it was a decision made basically that said that there was evidence that the NFL engaged in collusion to try to lower guaranteed money in contracts. The Lamar Jackson contract being, remember that Lamar Jackson was a free agent and somehow nobody wanted a quarterback, right? Including the Atlanta fucking Falcons, who gave one-legged Kirk Cousins $40 million only to draft his replacement with a project, but they didn't want Lamar Jackson. Okay. Gotcha, right? But this collusion settlement was there, and it was in favor of the players, though there seemed to be pretty strong evidence the owners, but excuse me, it was in favor of the owners. The ultimate decision was in favor of the owners, but for whatever reason, both sides decided to keep the agreement from the players, right? So like they got news of what happened, but the actual paperwork, they decided to keep away from the players. And Don put some reporting out about this yesterday, along with Wednesday, right? Let me give it days, right? According to reporting Thursday, that said that the head of the NFL Players Association, who, and Dominic, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the players decided after D. Smith's time was up that they wanted a guy with more corporate ties. Well, they got one, and his name is Lloyd Howell. I have met him. He seems like a nice enough fellow. He also works as a consultant for the Carlyle Group, which is a private equity group that is looking into investing in NFL teams. And somehow he does both of these jobs, which seems like a staggering conflict of interest. But he continues to do both of these jobs. And I do believe there was a time where this may have been closer to red letter news on television, but that's not what we're doing on television anymore. Like, we scraping the bowl for content. It's right here. This story is staggering. But, Dominique.
Okay. I thought that was a pregnant pause.
Just the big old butt. So I'm leaving you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that's all it is. Now, Dominique, you work with the union. Yeah. You've worked with the NBA player. NBPA. It's not the NBA PA. It's the NBPA. I don't even know where to begin with my question.
Yeah, I was president of the NFL Players Association, and like when I left that, or my term ran out, it's an active players role. My term ran out. Like I was always conscious of what it was like, because I was a part of leadership. I was on an executive committee in my second year in the league. Like, so I was either on the executive committee, which is essentially like 10 vice presidents, or the president of the union for more than half of my career. And so I was heavily involved in all of that stuff, and then went on, to continue doing union work afterwards with the basketball union. And one thing I always was aware of was how frustrating it was when outsiders who weren't in the union would like make comments. So I've always been really conscious of that, and like never, even through DeMorris's term and Gene Upshaw when he was there, I had obviously disagreements when I worked with both of them, and disagreements, things that happened afterwards, and I never really talk about it because it's like, this is the players union, the active players. They got to take control, and I don't think it really helps if I, a former president, is like am making my feelings felt about it. But man, I can't like, it's tough, man. It's tough to listen and watch, just because you see different decisions being made that. And again, because of my spot in my relationships, like I hear about stuff that doesn't get out. And so I shut my mouth and whatever's like, as long as the right players know if they're going to take action, they're going to take action. And I've seen players take over the union and take lots of action. Like when Gene died, a few players had to step in to ensure that the election process was fair. Like the players aren't afraid. They aren't dumb. They aren't lazy. And so I don't want to assume that they are by feeling like they need me to come out and say something. So I suspect that this is going to lead to the players doing something about these sorts of things, because these allegations or not only allegations, like the confidentiality, like these findings are staggering, man. And the thing about unions is, man, it's different. It's different. It's a different mindset. And business experience is one thing, union experience is another. And it's one of those things that require a different level of commitment and passion. It's not just like, I want to do a good job. It's also like, I know my place and I work for them, and everything that I do should be in service of the members. And that's part of it. So anyway, I don't want to get on a high horse and soapboxy, but like there are plenty of decisions that were made that seem to like take some power away from the players, which leads us to this situation where there are things like this that could be happening that just drive me crazy. And then the Lloyd stuff is like, prior to him even being hired, it's like the stuff that's on his resume, man, like it should give you pause before you commit to that, as if there ain't nobody else out there on earth that's qualified.
That's not a union man. Like I think the players, I understood the logic that you needed somebody who knew a little bit, like was more of a business person, right? D. Smith was a U.S. attorney. And he's got a book coming out. I think we're going to have him on to talk about that book once I get a chance to read it. But he was a U.S. attorney, right? But to me, and look, while that is not a business job, that is a job that comes, one, I think, with the ego of a U.S. attorney. And I don't mean that negatively, but U.S. attorneys run shit in their world, right? But also that's a wheeling and dealing sort of position, and you got to know the politics and everything else. And D is not flawless, certainly. But I think that is a profile that I think is in line with being somebody to run a union. Lloyd is not a union man. Like from meeting him, I met him during the writer strike, right? The WGA strike a couple of summers ago. And I spoke before a picket line, which was a very interesting experience because it gave me the juxtaposition between Lloyd and Marty Walsh, who is now the head of the NHL Players Association. He had previously been the mayor of Boston and was the Secretary of Labor under Joe Biden. And Marty, because he's very much a Marty, Dominique. He's very Boston. He is a Marty. And Marty, man, I think I had to talk after Marty. Yo, that was like going on after DMX. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know what to say. You know what I'm saying? That was a union man. You kind of hear it in the spirit of what it is. And a union man is typically a fighting man. Yep. The NFL union to me is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, all these sports unions are interesting because they're unions of rich people, right? Or at the very least, well-paid people. Mm-hmm. I think we'll put it that way, which means you don't get that much sympathy. I mean, this country has just turned away from organized labor completely, but it's a limited amount of sympathy that you get from the people. And like the compromise deal isn't necessarily that bad, right? But the NFL players are interesting because I don't remember the exact quote. I believe, Dominique, you will know what I'm talking about, but it's to paraphrase Gene Upshaw. I fought one time and I went up that hill and I turned around and I was by myself.
Yep.
And Upshaw concluded then that the game was not to fight as much as the game was just to get as much money for his guys as he could possibly get. The baseball union was historically the fighting union.
Right.
And they won every time. They stood tall. They had their guys always, and they kept winning. And then everything went crazy about 20 years ago because of the steroid stuff. At which point the players kind of had to make some compromises because the fight was making them look bad. And I think that led to now where the owners stay colluding on them, stay keeping their money low, everything else. And so now for the NFL players, you decide to get a guy to help you do business, but you forget. And I feel like this paperwork, once everybody, I mean, it's up there. Pablo is definitely uploaded. You can check it out. This paperwork shows, man, a union is still about the fight. Like it is an antagonistic relationship between labor and management at all times. You are never, ever partners. Sorry. Would love for it to be the case, but you're not.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are some times that the collaboration is important. Like it's obviously the thing about these partners in pro sports is there are no other partners. Like you're going to have to work together at some point, but no one's ever going to give you anything. And I think the power from anybody who's watched me or listened to me knows that like the power in the union comes from the solidarity. And this is frankly a fundamental lesson in life: is nothing is free. The bigger thing that you want is going to cost you more and more, and it may not cost you money. It may cost you in sacrifice and pain, and that's the frustrating part. One of the more challenging parts about being a union leader is when you are the union leader. It's possible that you can lose sight of your role as an employee, like your executive director, whatever, your president, whatever, your executive committee, whatever. Like, it's an upside down pyramid. You work for everyone else, and showing up and telling people what you're going to do or trying to find the easiest route. Like, no, you work for them. And it's not only because like fundamentally that's who your boss is. It's also because that's where your power comes from. It works to your advantage. If for some reason you've created a structure where they feel like, which is part of the challenge when you hire somebody from the outside and from an entirely different world, is you're hiring them because you're like, he know what he doing, he can take care of it. And when you hire someone like that, he knows what he's doing, he can take care of it, and you send him off to do it. When shit gets tough, and I'm not talking about Lloyd specifically, anyone, when shit gets tough, you're still fundamentally going to need that core of power being solidarity. And the guys, like, it's human nature. That ain't my plan. That ain't what I want. Then they disperse. Like, I think that's like the downfall of any union, or the challenge of any union, is forgetting that the executive director and the president and anyone leadership, like, it's based on solidarity, and it's based on a willingness to sacrifice. And there's no other way around it. There's no other way to create real leverage other than that. And once you lose that, you're in a tough spot, and it takes a while to rebuild. Like, to your point, the baseball union, like, that was built on, and the dynamics are different in different sports, but that was built on an understanding that this is the culture of the place. This is your place, and you have to sacrifice for it. It's something that is hard to continue to perpetuate when you have constant turnover and the dynamics around the situation change. It's just not an easy thing to do. It's a hard job.
Yeah, and I think, and we've talked about some of this before, there's a couple of levels that make football, I think, very particular. Number one, it's like 4 different unions in one union, right? There are superstar quarterbacks. They are their own world. There are the other quarterbacks. They are their own world. There are superstar to star caliber players that are their world. And then it's the biggest group, which is the rest of y'all. And they all have wildly divergent interests. You have a salary cap that's in place, but the quarterbacks are, again, playing a completely different game in terms of how much money they can wind up getting. And so it's hard to get. I mean, basketball has the same issues where the superstars are playing a completely different game than everybody else and trying to find some level of consensus where, among them becomes incredibly difficult. The thing that I think is interesting about football, and I'm curious your thought about this, football players are conditioned from the very beginning to sacrifice for the team. Mm-hmm. But the team, while it is the roster itself, really goes broader to whatever franchise it is that you're representing, whether it be your school, your little AAU program. It's not AAU, obviously, right, but, your program, whatever it is. But that is to whom you sacrifice, or for whom you sacrifice, is that group, which doesn't leave a lot of room to go sacrifice for the other group, right? It's like the sacrifice that you make for the franchise. Now you got to go get your money because you've made this sacrifice to the franchise. And now that actually puts you at odds with the people with whom you often sacrifice in the name of this other thing, to where y'all don't have the capacity or willingness in many cases to sacrifice for themselves.
This is one of the challenges, is the story around professional football is, I want to make it to the NFL. It's such a powerful story that guys are excited when they get drafted. And I know that we all accept it. I know it doesn't sound crazy to you, but the idea that you are celebrating that you have a freedom that's afforded to everyone else, you are celebrating that you do not have that. And so, like, it's deeply ingrained that guys want to, and I'm one of these guys. I was one of these guys. I want to get drafted. I want to play in the NFL. It's not I want to belong to the union. But all the cool shit about playing in the NFL is a result of the union. Like, that's the thing that is like harder to remind guys, because it's about control of the story, control of the narrative, control of media and influence. It's like, I want to be a part of the organization that Gene Upshaw led. Like, I want to have access to millions of dollars. You know why that is possible? It's because a lot of sacrifice that other people made. And it's just like, you are more proud to be a part of the Vikings than you are to be a part of the union. And that's a problem in like messaging. That's a problem in communicate. That's just it's a hard thing to overcome, because then you're like, hey, but no, you know what? They don't really want you to have these things. The reason why you have it is over here. This is what you want to be a part of. This is your team. And it's tough you can't just hit a switch on that. It's hard to rebuild.
Yeah, I don't feel like any other sport does the team. Yeah. And normally, no other sport, I don't feel like the team pretends to love you quite like they pretend in football. And I guess it's necessary to an extent, right? So, for example, when you talk about there being a prayer before a NASCAR race, yes, part of that is Southern culture and politics. The other part is we about to be going 200 miles an hour. I would like to pray. I would like you to pray for me. We all kind of need it, right? Yeah. It's a little different. I imagine that you need to feel some kind of affection in you and what it is that you're asking people to go out here and do it, even if they say they want to do it. Right. When you're asking them to do it when they hurt, right? When you're asking them to do it at the expense of all these other things, you got to have this dynamic and feeling of love. Like, there's military culture that's involved in this. There's religious culture that's involved in this. You can't separate how all of these things are kind of put together in one place. That creates this sort of loyalty or this idea that individualism is not appropriate. But we're not even really talking about individualism. We're still talking about group dynamics. We're still talking about the squad. We're just talking about who is your master, them or yourselves.
And another dynamic I would throw in there is the complexity of football. Like, it's not a complicated game, but it's complex. And when you look at other sports, there's like basketball, everybody's doing the same thing. Soccer, everyone's doing the same thing. Baseball, like, you're out there by yourself. The complexity of football is such that I could play in the NFL and Jeff Saturday could play in the NFL. And we are reliant on each other. You're not reliant on people in other sports the way that you are in football. And it's also complicated by the fact that we aren't together that often. So, like, you're in your meeting room, I'm in my meeting room, but we know that I got your back and you got mine. And that level of, because the jobs are so different. I've had bad games that were a result of my safety doing the wrong thing. I've had great games that was a result of my safety doing the right thing. I've had terrible games because we couldn't get no pressure and I'm covering for 4 seconds. I had good games because Suggs won tip the ball and give me a pick. Like, that type of reliance is not something that you have from down to down, or you have from play to play or game to game in any other sport. It's like, you know what? LeBron, nice, man. We know we not rebounding well. He can go get those rebounds. I can't block for you. I just can't. It ain't going to happen. I can't rush the passer. And I do think that adds to, like, these are my guys. These are my people. And you don't have that same dynamic anywhere else. Like, the communication and the connection just is hard to replicate.
Yeah, and I think another dynamic I'm curious what you think about is the union is there in large part to help guys get as much money as they can.
Right.
But what guys are really afraid of is losing money, right? And so a work stoppage, I talked to when I was talking to the guys in 2020 about the United movement with the college players. We talked about this on your show, and I remember Andrew Cooper gave me a great quote. And he was like, one thing he learned is the only way what you can't really make it happen without a work stoppage. Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to go out there and do a work stoppage. And 1987 really messed up the possibility of a work stoppage for the players, because they was out there going in front of Home Depot, getting them some dudes, putting them in football suits, and people paid and people watched. And then you had guys like actual quarterbacks or whatever, going out there and playing with them. Mm-hmm. Like that trump card. And I don't think that would work now, by the way.
Nah.
I think it might work for a week, but I don't.
We saw the replacement refs. We saw how that went.
forgot about the replacement ref.
Yeah, they tried that shit with them. It was like, nah, we ain't gonna be able to do that. And they're confused in the back of the end zone, just flabbergasted by a football play.
I can't believe they thought the regular refs ain't that good already.
It's like, let's get the second ones.
like that. The reason why semi-pro football, and I'm calling the new USFL, I'm calling the XFL, all of those, they won't work because there's not enough quarterbacks to go around. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you see what happens in an NFL game when you go to any backup. You see what it is. These cats can't even get those jobs.
It's not. I think you're right. Your point about losing money is a big one, because you can striking when you not gonna make $30,000 is different than striking when you gonna miss out on $15 million. And like, I understand that makes sense. Understanding the other thing that people who haven't been in unions misunderstand is they think the job of leading a union or being a part of the union, particularly leading it, is about in-room negotiations. It's like, who's the best negotiator? Negotiations is not like what you see in the movies. It's not like capably playing hardball or doing some tricky play with words to dupe somebody. Like, negotiations is years ahead of time. It's creating leverage and power. And that leverage and power takes time to create and requires connection. And I think that's why, like, politicians, I think probably when they did the search for Lloyd's replacement, they called and asked me if I had recommendations for the types of people to look for outside of athletes. I was like, yeah, like, politicians are the type of people that pound the pavement and are constantly campaigning. Like, you got to go to see these guys. You got to be accessible to these guys, and you have to be responsive to them. And it has to be over decades, or at least years, before they feel like this is mine. And then when they feel like this is mine, you then engender the type of commitment that we talking about, where a guy will tear a damn ligament and continue playing. Like, it's in these guys. Obviously, they're capable of it. They demonstrate it for free. Frankly, like, it's not going to change the money that they're making. They demonstrate it week in and week out. They just don't feel that connection to the union, which is sad, because there was a time when it was stronger. Maybe there was never a time when it was like it was before they had when the reserve clause was around and before they had free agency. Free agency changed some things, but it was a lot stronger at one point. And it's obviously, it's depressing for someone who, like, I've never cared about anything other than playing football in unions, like, legitimately deep in my heart. And it makes me sick, man. It makes me sick to see that we're in a situation where we got right now three stories in a matter of a couple months that just, frankly, embarrassing.